Let's move on to the auto space then. Bajaj Auto, we just saw the numbers flash on the screen. The numbers were more or less flattish for the past month. Domestic sales and exports, they were marginally lower. Two-wheeler sales, well, they saw a 6% dip. To discuss this, how is demand trending ahead of the festive season, Mr. Rakesh Sharma, the Executive Director at Bajaj Auto, joins us on the show. Hi, Mr. Sharma, good morning, and thanks so much for joining in. Well, give us a few details, particularly in the export market. I recall earlier this year when we were talking, we were struggling in that vicinity of around 110 to 120,000. Last few months, though, it stabilized at around 140,000. How is the exports market looking? Do you expect to scale up further from here on? Point number one. And also, since we're talking about exports, how is the Nigeria sales volumes? I think they were hovering around the 30,000 odd. What's the last number?
Good morning. Yes, the export story is one of slow recovery, and we were also not expecting a rapid recovery. It's more like limping back to normalcy. Like quarter one was, about 128,000 average per month for us, and quarter two is 10% better than at 140. I think that in the subsequent quarters, we will see a similar pace of recovery, give or take a few percent points, because that's the nature of the problem and how the individual economies are mitigating the effects of inflation. It is sort of playing out slowly, but we are happy that things have bottomed out and looking up slightly. And of course, a big contributor in this is Nigeria. And the story is similar in Nigeria, though Nigeria is still ravaged by a lot of devaluation, some uncertainty. They took some very good long-term policy measures, but which have caused a lot of pain in everyday life. And therefore, there has been a little bit of a holdback from serious enforcement of these measures. So that's why we again see, some dichotomy between the official exchange rate and the street exchange rate, which is again causing a little bit of inflation. But even after all that, retails in Nigeria crossed 30,000 units for us last month. So that was good. So some improvements over there too.
Mr. Sharma, hi, good morning. I don't know if this is correct to compare, but since the monthly numbers are released by all automakers, I was looking at TVS's export numbers. They've seen a very sharp ramp up. I think on a year-on-year basis, it's an 8% increase. On a month-on-month basis, it's a 15% increase. Could you kind of put your numbers in context with what we're seeing from a competitor? Are these different markets, etc., we're looking at, so not comparable? I mean, any thoughts?
Well, obviously, I can't talk about their numbers because I'm not privy to details of how what has been achieved in September by them. But, we tend to look at retails and we are looking at month-on-month improvement, and we are looking at, our share. And that is intact, inching up slightly. In fact, I would say that the Chinese have, in the last few months, on the back of very cheap products, which have sort of made a comeback in these difficult times, they have put a constraint on growth in our market share. And the other point is that these export numbers in a particular month, they sort of reflect more the individual positions of stocks and channel stocks and what kind of an approach one would like to keep on the channel stocks. Our approach has been to minimize exposure because we have savagely cut stocks on the ground, both with the dealers over there and the distributors, because we don't want this whole channel system to weaken or to be facing this uncertainty of the exchange rates, So it depends on what kind of an approach you take. Another very tenable is to sort of push the exports if you're sure of the devaluation occurring in the countries and just sit on it and, the product that way becomes cheaper. But our approach has been to sort of match exports and retails and minimize inventory exposure.
Mr. Sharma, hi, good morning. I thought my colleagues had covered exports and I'll move on to domestic, but then you brought in the Chinese word over there. So allow me to ask you this. I mean, can you elaborate a little more on that trend? which are the markets in, which of your export markets do you see a lot of competition now coming in from China? And do you see this as transitory, or could this now have some sort of an impact? I mean, how severe is the pricing competition there? And what does that mean for the business over the next few months?
Well, the Chinese story is not a new one. I mean, we have wrested, the Indian manufacturers have wrested the market share from essentially the Chinese, because the Chinese were very, very dominant players in Latin America and Africa, the entire African continent. And this sort of, what happens is when the backdrop changes, then the competitive positions also become slightly different. And what I was saying is that what we have noticed in the last few months is because the individual economies and the customers have gone through such hardship because of inflation, devaluation-led inflation, that it becomes that much more difficult for them to step up to our proposition, which is, much better value for money, much more reliable product, better products for which you pay a certain premium. And at least in these segments, in Africa and Latin America, and the entry segments, the Chinese companies who participate there are generally smaller companies, and they really bat purely price. So when the backdrop
so it's not
difficult.
Got it. So it's not an unusually new threat. It's something you've lived with before. I think that's the point you're making, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, got that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Got that. So let me now just shift focus to the domestic market. And here, if I look at domestic two-wheelers, then over September 22 to September 23, there's a 9% dip. I'm only talking two-wheelers. And I think that's something that people will want to know a little more about. Is that just because of seasonality, because of, I don't know if the festive season, though September is not really, festive month even last year. What would you attribute this to? And what's the outlook on domestic sales as we get into the season this year?
Yeah, the 9% dip which you are referring to is for the month, and that is for the billing. And if I just jog your memory, last year we had a severe supply chain issue. And by August, September, we were just coming out of it because of the semiconductors, etc. We had been, in particular, very badly hit. And the whole scramble last year in August and September, with an earlier season than this year, was to fill up the channel pipeline so that in the crucial periods of the season, which was a bit early, the festive season, we did not lose out because of non-availability of stock on the ground. And that's why those numbers of August and September were very high. And this year is more normal. In any case, the right way to look at it is retails. And the best source of information is Vahan. And if you look at Vahan retails, we are, growing very, very strongly, particularly in our area of focus, which is the top half of the industry. And to give you some numbers, which you can check in Vahan, the industry has grown at 15%, and we've clocked 45%. So we've grown at thrice the rate of industry in the top half of which is the 125cc plus segment, where we play the 125 to 250cc kind of a segment. So it's going great guns in that area for us. And the stock numbers, they will normalize once the season the dust is settled after the season. Okay.
All right, Mr. Sharma, we'll leave it there for this morning. Thanks very much. Look forward to our conversations as the festive season kicks in. Let's see how trends play up. That's Bajaj Auto. Stocks recovering from the lows of the morning.